Hi friends, I'm Jeff VG. 4 years ago, I upgraded my iPad to an iPad Pro. It's the 12.9-inch version, and I was really happy I did. I use this iPad every day. I get a lot of value out of it. Of course, it didn't take me long before I was downloading iOS music apps. It was a lot of fun. And over the last 4 years, I've really tried a lot of different popular iOS apps and learned a lot of techniques. But then last year, Logic came out with Logic Pro for iPad, and that was a bit of a game changer because I was already a big Logic fan on my Mac. So where does that leave us? Well, I've put together what I think are the best iOS music production apps for 2024. In no particular order, my number one is Koala Sampler. What starts off as a pretty simple application gets very powerful in a short amount of time. It stores a lot of samples, they can come from any source, and you can create sequences and patterns almost instantaneously with it. Easy to use, but more powerful than you think. I can't imagine anybody in the iOS world not knowing how to use Koala Sampler. If you're not using it on your iPad, you can use it on your iPhone, and it will even run on your Mac. Now, it's free when you first download it, but there is a package called Samurai, which adds functionality for chopping samples, for doing more advanced features, and it was worth getting. I think it was only about $6. And now, Koala has added a mixer. This is a growing community that supports this app, and the developer is very responsive to suggestions. Now, some might argue that there's better samplers out there for iOS, but nothing strikes as good a balance of ease of use and power as Koala. Now, my number two is gotta be Logic, and this falls into the category of the best DAW for iOS. Up until Logic Pro was released, there was competition between different DAWs. Cubasis 3 was a leader, GarageBand, because it was free, was ubiquitous. But Logic changed the game because not only were you getting one of the most popular and powerful DAWs, you were getting all of the instruments and plugins that come with Logic, plus some new ones. And what they were selling was the ability to start a project on your iPad and then take it over to your Mac and use it in the studio. And that back and forth between the iPad and your Mac is something no other vendor could deliver on. And I was originally skeptical. I couldn't see Logic Pro ever making it onto an iPad. In fact, I'd made public and YouTube channel videos saying it was impossible to get all that functionality into the real estate of an iPad. But somehow the Apple developers for Logic have done exactly that. What's shocking to me is that not only are you getting a great DAW, but you're getting all the virtual instruments and plugins that typically come with Logic, and that's where a lot of the value lies. No other iOS DAW seems to deliver that bundle of value. My number three is Drambo. In the world of GrooveBoxes, Drambo is king of the heap. Not only does it have a modular capability for adding synths and samples, but it has perhaps the best sequencer for developing songs. And this is where a lot of other GrooveBoxes kind of fall short. Yeah, you can create a nice 4, 8, 16 bar pattern, but how do you link all those patterns into a definable song? Drambo does it better than anything I've seen. Love the sequencer, love the layout. Of course, it works with all your AUV3 instruments. So does Logic, so does Cubasis, so does Beatmaker 3. They all are compliant these days. In that world of GrooveBox music making, there hasn't been a lot on the iPad as powerful as Drambo. Some will argue that there's other GrooveBox tools that they really like. Some people love Korg Gadget, some people are into the Roland Zen Beats. But those things are vendor specific. Korg Gadget works best with Korg's plugins and instruments. The Roland stuff works best with Roland. What I like about Drambo is its neutrality in the GrooveBox world. You can't get an Akai MPC or a Native Instruments Machina for iOS yet. But in my opinion, Drambo comes very close. So now there's this big question out there, will companies like Ableton also migrate to the iOS music space? We'll see. Number four is one of those AU instruments that came out last year. It's called King of FM. Now, I'm a big fan of FM synthesis and FM sounds. If I could get a DX7 on my iPad, that would be great. In the PC and Mac world, I've been using Dext for many years, and there are other DX7 clones available from Arturia and other vendors. But on iOS, King of FM is exactly as its title suggests. It is king. Number 5 is kind of the category of best synth. There is a lot of competition for this because there's lots of synths that you can buy and put on an iPad. But when Logic came out, all of a sudden you've got access to Alchemy, which has been one of the most sophisticated synths available. So this really changed the category of best synth for me because, in my opinion, the best synth now available on iOS is Logic's Alchemy. Imagine the same 3,600 presets that are on Logic Pro on your Mac are now available on your iPad. They also enhance the capabilities with a new plugin called Alchemy Sample, which takes advantage of the sampling capabilities that Alchemy always had, but makes it a lot easier to use with the real estate and the layout of an iPad with its touch capabilities. Now, number 6 in the category of drum machines, this is another one that changed for me. I had used 4 or 5 different drum machines, Beatmaker 3 and its DAW capabilities, but because it gives you a great sample interface, I'd use it to create drum kits. I had also been using Hammerhead, a great drum machine, Drum Computer, also excellent, and sometimes to make my own sample kits, I was using Sample Crate. But then when Logic came out, all of a sudden I've got access to Logic's Drum Machine Designer, one of my favorite drum samplers in the Mac world. The things that I love about Drum Machine Designer are all available now on an iPad. You're not limited to just 16 samples. You can do multi-layering. I can take advantage of kits that I've created on my Mac, move them onto my iPad. It's great. So for me, the best drum machine now for iOS is Logic's Drum Machine Designer. Now, if you don't buy into the traditional metaphors of a DAW or a GrooveBox, then you're looking at apps that try to change the rules around music making. And iOS is a great platform for that. It has the touch capabilities, and it's just a community that likes to push the envelope of challenging the way things have been done in the past. One thing I learned was that a lot of iOS music production is very modular. It's putting together different apps to do a certain function. And at the hub of that assembly is AUM, which looks like a mixer, but it's far more than just a mixer. With AUM, you need MIDI generation to come from somewhere. And for that, there are vendors that provide a lot of different things. I was using Helium and Digistix from a particular vendor, and I was totally into putting together all these bits and pieces with MIDI programming to create music. I still love AUM. It's just a platform for working on ideas, quickly putting together different instruments to get a certain sound. It's efficient, it works great, and I would recommend AUM as my number 7. My number 8 is actually Riffler, which is a guitar riff generator. But I've liked this application from the first day I saw it. One reason is there's not a lot of guitar instruments available for iOS, but the implementation of Riffler is really pretty cool. It's got great sounds, great riffs, and the developer has looked at all the attributes of playing guitar and built them into this app. It's highly configurable, it's creative. You can even use it as a MIDI generator for other sounds other than guitar. My number 9 is Scalar 2. In that category of MIDI generation, I've been a big fan of Scalar since it came out. The fact that it's available for iOS is a real plus. There aren't a lot of other MIDI generation tools of that caliber that work as well as Scalar. You can have multiple Scalar instances either in your DAW, like in Logic Pro, or in AUM, and they can be linked, so they share the same chord progression. It's powerful, takes a bit to learn, but it comes loaded with all kinds of chord progressions and chord sets by artist and by song type. If you've been using Scalar on your Mac or PC, you're going to want it on your iPad. Lastly, number 10 is my honorable mention to Cubasis 3. In this DAW world, Cubasis has been a leader. I like what it delivers. I like the layout. Is it the same caliber as Logic Pro? No. Is it a close second? Yes. In terms of its effectiveness, it gets honorable mention. So those are the 10 iOS music production apps I recommend. They set us up nicely for 2024, but it'll be interesting to see what vendors come to the table with competing products, especially with Logic Pro's dominance since its release in 2023. I think it's going to be an interesting year, and it'll be quite exciting. One thing to anticipate is that Apple has been rumored to announce new iPads coming to the market sometime this year. Presumably, there may be an M3 iPad, which is going to make music production on an iPad that much more attractive. Now, personally, I like using my iPad on my lap. I like picking it up, walking around with it, and I don't want to attach an audio interface to it or a MIDI keyboard to it. But there are lots of people who are doing that, and they're recording entire albums and releasing entire albums built on their iOS device. It's impressive. Are we at a stage where an iOS device is all you need? Sort of. What we haven't seen is some of the major vendors port their popular applications to iOS. Native Instruments isn't there, Arturia isn't there. You cannot run Universal Audio plugins on an iPad yet, and those are 3 of the top tier vendors. Are they going to make the move? We'll see. I don't think the barrier is so much the power of an iPad or iOS as much as the effort involved into porting applications that you've written for a Mac or PC over to that platform. That's a big expense, and those vendors have to believe that there's money to be made there. After all, this is a business, and the decisions are made based on revenue potential and profit. If you found this video interesting, please click on the like button. Send me a comment. Consider subscribing to the channel. I really appreciate your support, and the iOS music production community is not huge, but there are some key players there, and they deserve a lot of recognition and your support. Thanks for watching.